Let's give it extra time.
Principal Berkowitz, would you like to say anything at the top? I think we're waiting for Councilmember Allen and or Laura before we introduce Andrea and the team.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Lona. Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be together with a big group after a challenging week last week. I think that's what I think we have some, what I hope is exciting updates and information to share about the Peabody facility, which is a major focus of our meeting tonight. And I'm mostly glad that the thing I'm mostly glad about in this meeting is that we have opened lines of communication. I've worked with our partners at central office and the other city agencies to make sure that transparent and trust building as we can be once we get off the ground with the plans to repair, fix, and reopen Peabody, which is what everybody wants. So I'm glad Andrea and her team are here today to share what they have in store for you, which includes a timeline and lots of other meetings where our city can be accountable for reporting to our families and stakeholders about the school that we all and certainly by the start of next school year, which is the goal. So I thank Andrea for leading her team and coordinating with the other city agencies, DGS and risk management, I believe, to bring you all up to speed with the latest and then paint a picture of what the next few months in terms of Peabody's repairs will look like. So thanks for the chance for the audience tonight. Great.
Thank you, Principal Berkowitz, and thanks to everyone for joining our January PTA meeting. I'm happy to, although nervous to report that unfortunately we have reached our 100-person Zoom capacity. So Councilmember Allen cannot get on. I would like to ask anybody who might be a Stewart Hobson parent who is less interested in the Peabody update or Watkins family, if you wouldn't mind signing off just for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm very sorry to ask this. It's just been, I don't think we were expecting to reach capacity so quickly. So thanks for folks, if you could just jump off. As we're waiting to, I'll just ping Councilmember Allen and let him know that he can dial in. We have 2 interpreters on the line, so thanks to Joe and Tiara. They're here, so if you need sign language interpretation, they should be pinned and remain at the top of the screen for everyone. So having said that, let's see if we've got Councilmember Allen on. If not, Andrea, why don't you go ahead and introduce the DCPS, DGS, and ORM team, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Swayatoka. I'm the Deputy Chief of Facilities for DCPS. I'm joined by several other colleagues, both within DCPS and other agencies. I'll just go ahead and introduce them for themselves, and folks will jump in as questions come up. Within DCPS Facilities, I have Nick Williams, Toussaint Webster, and Amanda Wu all on the line for us, and I'll probably as we go share a little bit more about each of their roles, but we all work in tandem together, and we'll make sure that we get you guys back up and running. I also have 2 folks with me from DGS, Brian Butler, who oversees their capital construction programs. We work incredibly close with his team, and then John Stokes, who is head of communication for DGS. And then also very excited that Jed Ross could join us. He's the director of ORM. He is also on the line and can answer any specific, far more clearly than I can, insurance and risk questions, as that has played a big part in this incident that took place at Peabody. Those are the folks that I have. I don't know if Councilman Allen has been able to get on.
He is unable to get on, but I think, I don't know if John and Brian want to introduce themselves from DGS. Say hi, quick hi.
Hey guys, my name is Brian Butler. I'm the Executive Program Manager for schools, so I oversee the program for schools. We basically oversee the building of all the new schools here in the city, or the major renovations of all the schools here in the city. So we are tasked with taking on this role and getting you back up and running as soon as humanly possible. So we are excited about what we have ahead of us, and it's a challenge, but it's a challenge I think when we're doing the analysis, I think we can definitely meet and get you back up and running the way you deserve. So we're looking forward to working with you all over the next 6-8 months to carry out this project.
Hi, I'm John Stokes, and I'm the Associate Director, External Affairs for the Department of General Services. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm responsible for communications and outreach for DGS, and just looking forward to having an engaging conversation this evening and making sure that we can all communicate and collaborate.
Wonderful. Before we get started, I just wanted to make another appeal. If you're a Stewart, Hobson, or Watkins family who might be not as interested in the Peabody renovation and repair, if you wouldn't mind dropping off until about 8:30, we've reached capacity and we're trying to let as many Peabody families in the call as possible.
I do see that Laura, Councilmember Allen's office, has joined. Laura, I didn't know if you were planning to say anything.
Well, I will stand in for Councilmember Allen, who's still trying to get on. But I work with Andrea's team and DGS on projects all over Ward 6, but both of my kids went to Peabody. So it is certainly a special place for me, and I know for all of you. So we will be working with them closely as this moves forward, and however we can help and support everyone to make sure we get where we all want to be with kids back in the building real soon.
Great. So I think with that, I'd like to go ahead and share my screen, if that works for everyone. We just have a few series of slides. Really appreciate over the last couple weeks, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Not sure if there needs to be another.
Zach, could you give Andrea screen sharing ability?
She's got it.
Move things around for a second. I can still see. Can everyone see the cover slide? Maybe give me a thumbs up. See Jed nodding. Okay, great. So again, really appreciate over the last couple of weeks having the opportunity to coordinate with the PTA and the principal to arrange this meeting. I understand there's been a lot of frustration maybe in the process that has taken place over the last few months, but I think we are here to really assure you that there has been work taking place and to ensure what that work has been and how we're going to move forward, both from a communication standpoint, as well as just the work to be completed so that we can safely open Peabody for school year 21-22. So again, this is a very short presentation, but we did just want to have some talking points. As I go through this, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. My team members are answering them in the chat if they're able to, or will also ping me as we're giving this presentation, happy to answer. And then we should have plenty of time at the end for also Q&A. This presentation is also posted. We have a DCPS facilities website. Toussaint, if you don't mind sharing in the chat the link. We created a Peabody page already, and we always post the presentation right before the meeting starts so that folks can download at their leisure. It will stay up indefinitely, so no need to rush and download it as I'm presenting. It'll be up for the foreseeable future. So I wanted to start, and we've talked a little bit about it, with communication. Moving forward, we will be forming what we refer to as the SIT, a school improvement team. And while this is typically reserved for modernization, given the scale of what's happened at Peabody and the amount of updates that we will want to provide and assurance that we are going to reopen this building, we agreed at the request to form a SIT, and we're happy to accept that request. So we will be looking at monthly updates. I don't have a date for February, but we will work closely and hopefully maybe by the end of this week, get a February date on the books. This group, usually around 15 to 20 people, should be comprised of both school staff, families, and community members. So we'll work with the principal to make sure we have sort of that mix of people and we've identified the right folks that should be joining. All of our meetings are still public, so even if you're maybe not a formal SIT member, you're always welcome to listen in. But we do ask that the SIT members, whether you serve as a role as a school staff or whether you're a family member that's on that, part of your role is to help share out the information following those meetings. So in the event that other families or staff are not able to attend, the information gets disseminated. Again, all presentations will always be posted on our website. And then on my team, I mentioned Amanda Wu is on the call. She will be the daily person coordinating back and forth. So her contact information is also on the website. Of course, you're always welcome to reach out to me as well. Our team works, incredibly close, but she will be sort of the day-to-day person moving forward with this project. I did just want to caveat quickly with the SIT. I think this is going to look a little different than maybe a traditional modernization. I wanted to make sure that it was clear that this is not a full modernization, that we will be bringing the building really back to replacing kind. That investigation is still ongoing, but this is not as if we have sort of passed over and moved into a modernization. So traditionally in a SIT format, we're coming to you with different concepts and options to review and evaluate. That will likely not be the case. It'll be more of a share out and say, based on this finding, we need to replace X, Y, and Z, and here's how we're going to do that and move forward. Certainly, if there are any options available, we will share that with you, but I don't necessarily anticipate that being the case. So just wanted to remind everyone, and I'm sure everyone is fairly clear at this point, but just sort of the incident that took place on September 28th. So on the third floor, that would be the floor below the attic. So everyone probably is familiar with the attic space, which houses the library and the art room and the music room. So the ceiling below that collapsed on the evening of the 28th. And as a result, a pipe burst, which is really what has caused the damage throughout the building. It resulted in flooding, essentially trickling down from the third floor all the way down into the basement area. The attic space is really untouched and was not impacted by any of this, but the 4 floors below this really are where the damage lies and largely due to water. At this time, and really since the incident, the building remains closed, really out of an abundance of caution and in partnership with our partners at ORM and DGS due to health and safety concerns. So as the building has been shored up, we are still only allowing certain members within the abatement team and the construction team and those as part of the insurance investigation into the building. And I think that really is an important note as we lead into a big question that we've been receiving a lot and certainly we're working closely with the school on. We've received a number of questions of whether staff have been allowed back in the building. So initially when it happened, we did retrieve a few laptops. As you can imagine, laptops were being distributed at that time. And so we were able to quickly get those out and move those over to Watkins. Also in December, custodians and school leadership were able to just walk just to see sort of the current state of that. But since then, no other staff have been allowed. In December, the school, which we truly appreciate, worked closely and developed a list of items that the staff would like retrieved. It was in a very detailed list, room number, item per line. We have shared that again with DGS and ORM, and they're in the middle of retrieving those items as we speak. So with the goal of hopefully delivering those later this week to Watkins for staff to pick up. As part of the process, and again, this is really out of an abundance of caution for the health and staff, which is our top priority throughout all of this, the staff will be asked to sign a waiver. If items are not deemed safe to leave Peabody, they will not be left. And the contractor performing this work is documenting in a very detailed way what items are leaving and what items they're not recommending to leave the building, likely due to just too much of significant water damage. And so the staff will be notified of that, of what items are able to be moved over to Watkins and for pickup. They still will be required to sign the waiver. And again, we are attending a staff meeting on Wednesday. I think there might be more questions around this, or even potentially in the chat. I don't know, team, if there's questions in the chat that we should answer about this right now. But we will be attending a separate staff meeting on Wednesday to answer any other questions that staff might have. So I wanted to move through some of the work in progress, really what has taken place to date. And I'm sure it seems frustrating that you feel like we haven't given as many updates as you would have liked, but I did just want to provide assurance that, things have been happening in the background. It does take time. So sort of the first step that took place was to make sure that we stabilized the building. That was done immediately. This is interior shoring, so not something you would see on the inside. Again, we need folks working in there, and we want to make sure it's as safe as a working condition for those contractors in the building working. The removal of the collapsed ceiling on the 3rd floor, as well as the cafeteria acoustical panels also have been removed. There are other ceilings that, just like all of your classroom ceilings, that are the linear acoustical multicolor, or colored by floor. We are still in the middle of working to remove those. Those were not the same reason. Those simply have started to deteriorate due to the amount of water that has come down from the 3rd floor all the way down. It is not really a result of what happened up on the 3rd floor, again, just because of the saturation within those acoustical panels. So likely those will all be removed as well. We are in the middle and hopefully final stages of a review and assessment by ORM. They have been engaged, again, from the very beginning of this, from an insurance perspective, to evaluate the full damage, what took place, and what will be covered through insurance. I know I have also seen a few questions out there of, will repairs have any impact to Watkins Peabody operating budget? I just wanted to assure folks that it won't. The repairs that are going to take place are not going to come out of the local school budget, again, for Peabody or Watkins. This will be covered either through the insurance claim, which is still to be determined in terms of what the full extent, and I'll let Jed chime in if you'd like to, as well as any contingency fund that the city has. We will make that request of what's not funded through the insurance. We will fund through available contingency fund, and we feel comfortable that the amount of work that we likely anticipate doing can be funded through that. So again, no impact to any of the operating budget within Peabody or Watkins. And then I think most importantly and exciting, and they will likely join us for the meeting in February, we do have an architect on board. This is Studio Land. They're a firm that works for us across the district and has done a number of projects. We are excited to have them on board. They are working to complete their sort of initial analysis and conceptual design in partnership with, again, the insurance review that is underway to make sure we really have the full scope of what needs to be repaired. As you can imagine, with water damage, their water can get trapped, and we want to make sure, again, out of an abundance of caution for health and safety of staff and students in that building, that we are doing everything that is needed to make sure it is a safe building for people to return to. And then for the final slide, I just want to take you through schedule and how we're going to get to that August reopening for school year 21-22. I know that we have shared that the building at this time will have to be closed for the remainder of the year. And I think, unfortunately, given the pandemic that we're in, that has worked in our favor to partner and house both Peabody and Watkins students in the Watkins building. Hopefully next school year looks a little different for all of us. And we anticipate we would need full capacity of both buildings. So that is our goal. And at this time, we don't have any concerns about opening for August, there certainly can always, construction can be unknown. And if something changes in the next, few months, we would certainly come back to you. But at this time, we still feel comfortable with reopening for August, again, for school year 2021-22. So for the remainder of the winter, we will continue the overall assessment and develop that scope of work for the renovations. Do any other ceilings need to be replaced or repaired? What about the floors, any of the casework? All of that kind of scope will be determined. Then a general contractor will be awarded the construction project. This will be through a process that DGS uses called an IDIQ contract. These are contractors that have a certain contract already with DGS, and it does have to be solicited to a couple, but it sort of speeds up the procurement process as opposed to something that takes 6 to 9 months for our traditional modernization process, which so this is a much faster and simpler process for us to use the IDIQ process. And then the construction would take place throughout the summer and again, be ready for August. So I haven't been paying attention to the chat. I'm happy to open it up at this time to questions. Those were the slides that I wanted to share. And again, hopefully highlighted some of the questions that I have been shared with me. Again, appreciate several of the questions in advance. That was very helpful to prepare. So happy to just take open questions at this time.
Andrea, we've had a couple of questions in the chat, which Toussaint is doing a very good job of addressing. I think I'm going to turn the floor over to parents who might have questions, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. We are anticipating an August 2021 return, and hopefully that includes enough time to allow teachers to get into their classrooms, obviously to set up before the school year starts. I don't want to have to ask this question, but has DCPS come up with Plan B should our students and the building not be ready?
I mean, I think that is certainly something we are always considering. Essentially, I would look at it as part of a mini swing site. Have we procured trailers and done a full layout? No, because I just don't feel that we are ready and still feel really confident that we are going to open in August. In the next month or so, if we feel differently, that is something we can definitely consider, and we still have time to pivot to that. But that would likely be the alternative. I don't think that we have a building that would necessarily be available to just move. We would look at probably trailers on a site somewhere.
We're going to take your really confident and stick with that.
Yes.
I don't know if someone from your team wants to moderate the questions in the chat, or if folks would just like to raise their hand.
Yeah, Toussaint, if you don't mind, if you've been moderating, if there's questions you feel like you haven't answered, if you want to bring them up to me, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, right now, the last couple of questions are, could you clarify what standard is being used to determine when mold assessment is necessary, please? And then someone, same person, Kathy said, so per Jed's response, a licensed assessor has been through the building to guide that remediation. So that's a question that's asking. That's great and very reassuring. So I guess the question is about the standard used to determine when assessment for mold is necessary.
Hi, everyone. I can speak to that. I'm Jed Ross. I'm the Chief Risk Officer for the district. I'm the Director of the Office of Risk Management. And we're using both DGS experts and experts from our insurance carrier to ensure that the building is going to be safe. So you should rest assured that we're making sure everyone's health and safety is paramount. That's our first and singular priority in any circumstance like this, and something that my office works to take care of every day, all day, citywide. And so you should just know that we're using licensed vendors who deal with this type of remediation on a national and international type of circumstance, and then local folks who DGS uses all the time.
Brian, I don't know if you want to chime in. The local folks that Jed is referring to, we refer to it typically as an industrial hygienist. We have a couple of different groups that we work with across all of our modernizations. They're always involved. And so, they're really great. They understand the importance of this. Cannot stress the little kids that we have in the building, our students, our staff, all really important. So Brian, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I suppose well, the way this works generally is there is an industrial hygienist. These are licensed professionals that come in and they analyze basically the water damage, they analyze any potential for mold, they do a review of that, and then they create a report. In this case, Zurich also brought in a specialty team. And they carried out a full analysis of the entire building, and actually the contractor started today to work through that water damage and start abating the building, and that has oversight by licensed professionals, making sure it gets done right, and obviously at the end then we do a quality control check from for DC government from DGS point of view as well. We have basically 2 project managers now allocated out to this project to make sure that the work that happens out there is done right and that we can stand over it from DGS. So basically this is kind of step 1 of the process. Step 1 is making sure we go in there, abate, and then at the same time we have designers working, doing an analysis to create, the scope of work that would have to be carried out in the medium to long term. That scope of work then feeds into where we're us hiring the contractor. So the goal is to have the contractor on in early spring and then work through the pricing with that contractor and then move into full construction, renovation of the building, late spring into the summer period. The questions around like, do we feel confident? I feel confident with the timeline we have right now. Obviously I'll feel more confident as we start getting the final reports in over the next little period of time on exact the scope that has to be done. But there's nothing inside the scope right now that it gives me a level of concern saying this can't happen in the timeline we have. So from DGS's point of view, again, as like Jed said, we do this all day. We've modernized, I think I actually had to count 60 something buildings over the last 50 years. So over the last 15 years. Of the schools. So I do feel confident that with the scope that we're looking like we're going to have to do, that the timeline we have in front of us, it's definitely very achievable. And as we work through, especially over the next 2 months, those updates will be kind of critical to ensure that the parents, the teachers, everyone, it kind of comes along this ride with us and understands what we're doing and understands how we're going to get there. So that's really the goal from capital construction, is to make sure we have that communication that gives some level of comfort to the parents and teachers that this will get done in the timeline we're talking about.
So Lona, I'm just going to jump in really fast since we're on the conversation of systems. So Andrea and Brian, in addition to the flooding damage, I'm assuming that DCPS and DGS are also taking this opportunity to do system checks throughout the school that may or may not have been related to the failure of the ceiling and the failing pipe, right? So I'm assuming that if you're going to go in and spend all of this money and we're going to go ahead and rehab the building, that we are checking everything within the building, whether or not it may have been involved with the underlying cause of the ceiling collapse.
That is correct. Our analysis doesn't just go to the 3rd floor. We're analyzing the building from basically top down to ensure that like everything in the building that we can stand over and make sure is done right and is 100% functioning correctly. So this is not just go in and fix one ceiling and one floor. This is looking at the building from basically the roof all the way to the basement and analyzing every part of it and every piece of the structure, so we can stand over and say, like, if I can stand over Brian Butler, say that I would send my kid to that school at the end of this. So and the goal is to make sure that it is abundance of caution all the way through this, and making sure that we've analyzed literally everything from mold through the structure, through the HVAC, through the electrics, all the way through the building, and replaced and repaired anything that's out there that we have to. So it's not just a look at the 3rd floor and fix the water damage. This is looking at from top down.
Okay, and then one more question. This might be for Jed or Andre, I'm not sure. In addition to the underlying cost of the repairs and the rehabilitation for the building, I'm assuming that the conversation with Zurich also includes the materials inside the building that were not about, whether or not the flooring needs to be repaired, but were about the materials inside the classrooms. Is that a fair assessment?
So our policy does cover business personal property. So yes, and all of that is being itemized through our remediation process and documented and will be part of the claim that we're dealing with. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jed, just
That's
to
such a
back on what Amy said, there are certain things that DCPS might not necessarily, and ORM necessarily know about that's in the building. For example, Sue Bloom, our librarian, put in the chat that we had hundreds of new books delivered the day before the flood for roughly in the $4,000 range. We also have a very large storage closet in the basement that stores all the materials for the Capitol Hill Classic, our biggest fundraiser for our 3 schools. That's in the basement. We don't know if Jason has made a list of what was in there, so we'd like to talk to you about what, if anything, was salvageable. And finally, we also have a games and puzzles library down there, which had hundreds of board games and puzzles that families and the PTA have donated. All of that, I'm assuming, is gone. So I would just ask that when you're getting to that point, if you could please touch base with our community, because there are things like that. We also have gym equipment that was stored in some of the closets that you all may not necessarily know about, just beyond the classroom, that we really want to flag for you, especially when we are putting the insurance claim in, so you've got the full scope.
Yep.
Sure. Just so you are aware, I mean, the remediation company is going through everything in the entire building. Whatever's salvageable and safe is going to come out. We'll go to Watkins and will be available. If there are items that are not, that's being documented and being managed to try and put everything back to where it was before the incident. So you should rest assured that those things are going to be taken care of. It doesn't mean that it's an instantaneous process. We also just first and foremost need to make sure that it's safe. We don't want anything coming out of the building that somebody could get and then they could get sick from it. And so most importantly, we want to make sure that all the items are safe. And then they may, through the remediation process, through the salvaging process, do industrial cleaning for items that they deem safe. And then items that are just not salvageable, they will throw those away, and then they'll have them identified, which then there'll be reimbursements, and we'll be working through the capital construction team, the DCPS team, to reprocure those items for the school. So the goal is to put everything back to the way that it was. And that's the total process. It is not a simplistic one, because first and foremost is our children's safety, the teacher's safety, our staff safety. We don't want people to get things that could make them unhealthy.
Yeah, I would echo Jed. I did warn him at the beginning of this that early childhood, pre-K and K has the most stuff of any grades. So having been there earlier today, not just classrooms, like all the tiny little closets in the corridor, the doors were open, and the team was going through the assessments.
And you should know I have 12-year-old triplets here in the district, so I'm very well aware of the needs of children and school-age children, and I feel for everyone, and I know all of us do, and we're doing our best to make sure we take care of the Peabody community.
Thank you. Andrea, I think we've had, and Toussaint, a few other questions in the chat, including there was one from Lindsay Vanderdre, I think early on. Lindsay, I don't know if you're on or where it had to do. This is an extremely tight timeline for construction drawings and procurement. Will the contractor bid on drawings from the previous renovation, or will bid on an early set 35 or 65? I'm not quite sure what that means, but that was her question.
I can speak to that a little bit. So the goal for this is we're not here to start over. What we want to do is, there is a certain level of design required, but the design for the layout, the design for the spaces themselves will remain as a replacing kind. Now, there is some structural work. There is items like this, like ceiling grids, how we tie back to that side of it, that kind of structural work that would have to be permitted and redesigned to make sure it meets today's standards. The same thing we may, with DOE codes, we may kick in some DOE codes that we have to upgrade. And also then you're looking at maybe some HVAC, fresh air requirements, things like that to meet today's standards. So, there is a kind of a couple of stage process here. It's like, creating that initial demo permit as we're creating those drawings with an expedited review process with DCPS. We work very closely with DCPS, DCRA. We work very closely with DCRA, like we have a meeting with them nearly every week to talk through our permits, talking through our expedited permits and helping us to get those review processes done quickly. This one will be no different. We will have to work closely as we produce drawings and structural drawings in particular to work through those review processes and try and get them done expedited. That's why the architects obviously are the first to get on board. We pushed to get the architects on board in December. They've already started their review process. They've already started a review of the existing drawings that was done, I think 12 years ago or something. So to basically have to understand what has to happen to have the similar layout. They've brought in a lot of their engineers over the last month to analyze the building, to start that design process already. So once we have these final reports, then we can solidify what exactly is the final scope and then move very quickly into the construction document that would be required for permit. So we aren't, it is a little different to designing a building from scratch, which is a timely process. This is reestablishing the building in today's codes to meet today's codes, but the layout would be no different and the design will really be no different to what you have already. So we can expedite that quite quickly. We've already talked to DCRA about expediting the permits and requirements that we need. And then we have to strategize. There's always challenges around getting, stormwater management, if that would kick in, things like this, DOE requirements, how we meet those. And so that's kind of like a DGS specialty. Is we partner with our sister agencies all the time to expedite things like this. So you're not wrong. It is a tight timeline, but it is something we do regularly. So this is why I can say I do feel comfortable saying we can definitely get the permits through, get the work in place. As we continue through this process over the next couple of months, it is a critical time to make sure we do meet the deadline of the end of the summer to bring the building back online. But as we provide updates over the months, this will be an open process. We will have those discussions with you. If we do come up against challenges, we will have those discussions with the team here. So they're, really, I feel comfortable right now saying is if we were here 3 months time only starting this, I would probably be not as comfortable saying that anymore. But right now, I think as long as we can move quickly, I think we'll be okay.
I think we've had a couple more questions that have been answered in the chat. I do see a hand up. Jay Adelstein, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
I just want to be very brief. I'm with your local ANC 6C. Both Commissioner Chris Healy is on the line, as well as myself. We have a grants committee. We can't do construction. We can't do anything like that. But don't forget, there is a grants committee, and we are ready, willing, and able to help out on the icing on the cake. But we're going to leave it to DC government to bake the cake, make and bake the cake. I'm also on the Northeast Library. We also have funds. So particularly your librarian. I don't know how much we have or what we can do, but that should not prevent you from reaching out and asking. That's all.
Truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I think we might be taking you up on that. We appreciate it. Let's see, anybody else? Toussaint, did we take care of everyone in the chat?
I think so. I'm going to scroll a little bit more just to make sure.
So Andrea, as we're just doing one final scrub, could you talk us through the sit? You said it'll be comprised of 10 to 15 members of the community. I assume you'll follow up with Principal Berkowitz in terms of the people in each of those, groups that are, invite somebody from their team, LSAT, community member, PTA, administration. That's how it usually works, is my recollection.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
We want to go
And
as
then
a variety.
Good. And then are you aiming for a certain week in February to set up our first SIT meeting? I don't think we have any breaks in February except for that long President's Weekend.
I mean, probably maybe not the first week of February with school reopening in all schools. My team is just incredibly busy that week, but probably looking at maybe the week of the 8th or the 15th of February, but we can base it on staff and other PTA and LSAT meetings that exist. We want to try to avoid any other conflicts.
Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. So we will keep an eye out for that information so we can reach out to those members of the community and see who's interested in joining.
Sounds great.
Okay. Right. If we don't have any other questions, I really want to thank you, the DCPS team, Brian and John and Jed for joining us. We know it's a Monday night, as my husband reminded me. I can't believe you're doing this on the college championship night. So I appreciate everyone taking the time and answering our questions, and we look forward to working with you and getting our building fixed and our kids and our teachers and our administration back in mid-August.
Great. Thank you for having us. I'm glad we could answer some questions for you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea and team. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Principal Berkowitz.
Great.
Should I assign? It said to assign a new host. Do you want that to be you?
Yeah, you can. Yes, please.
Okay.
Great.
So I don't end the whole meeting inadvertently. So I would hate that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks everyone for your patience as we dealt with our over capacity issue. I also, before we transition to general PTA business, I wanted to give a special shout out to the Peabody team, Amy, Sarah, and Mila, and then our advocacy team, Kerslin and Dana. They submitted the FOIA requests. They drafted the letter to DCPS asking for the SIT, which I think was a strategic move on our part to really continue the information flow with DCPS and DGS. And they answered dozens of emails over the winter break when it was probably the last set of emails they wanted to answer as they were trying to take some time off. So I just wanted to thank the 5 of them. And now we're going to turn to, we've got some quick things to go over. I know I'm tracking that it's already 8:45, but we're going to do a budget update. Then we've got an exciting auction announcement. We'll walk through some campus updates and then just flag a few dates for everyone before we close off tonight. So I'm going to turn over to Mina McWilliams, who will give our bi-monthly PTA budget update.
Good evening. Thanks, Lona. So I thought I'd start the budget report with some good news. In December, we were one of the recipients of the National Capital Bank Foundation's special holiday donation of $4,000. So that's good news for the new year. Also for the yard sign fundraiser, we're still calculating the final cost, but we collected a little over $2,000, spent $700, therefore raising approximately $1,300 through that fundraiser. For the budget spending, just wanted to start off saying that all the accounts are looking good and all the spending is on track with what we anticipated. And I will go through and highlight what we've spent since our last PTA meeting back in November. For the Peabody operational budget, we spent $144 on PTA copies made for the Peabody supply bags. For the Peabody restricted, we spent $535 on irrigation services. The Peabody Activity Fund, we spent $1,628 on teaching supplies for the teachers. For the Watkins operational budget, we spent $7,308 on instructional bag supplies, attendance superstar gift cards, and mental health family support. But I should note that for the instructional bag drive, we also raised $4,000 for that. So the Watkins restricted, we spent $282 on teacher stipends and an honorarium for Talik Barber and book copies. For the Stuart Hobson operational, we spent $8,745 on spirit gear for teachers and staff, grant payments for the Stuart Hobson Reads One book, the Scripps Spelling Bee enrollment, salsa lessons, and learning and teaching supplies, such as iPads and tablets, books included in care packages for the teachers' holiday gifts, and a small holiday lunch for on-site staff. For the Stuart Hobson restricted, there was nothing additional spent since November. For the theater budget, we spent $300 on video editing and the Troop Winter 2020 projects. For the principal stipend, we spent $185 for lunch for the maintenance staff. And for the marketing communications, we spent $661 on the website domain fee and Zoom subscription. From the PTA discretionary, we spent $210 for holiday gift cards for admin, holiday gifts and cards for the admin and staff. And one last note, we will be spending $3,000 from this budget to pay for the Wells Collective. We should be getting that statement soon. So that's all for the budget, Mona.
Great. And we will post our standard budget document in the notes, which will be posted later this week. We made it a goal to have the same standard budget form, which is a 2-page PDF document for everyone to read in the notes when they are posted from each of our PTA meetings. So big thanks to Mina and Jess for putting together that document. And we will turn over to Jenna Anderson, who is one of our auction co-chairs, along with Christy Lowe, who's going to give us the spring auction update and our exciting announcement.
Yes, so exciting. And I'm so glad so many people joined the call and crashed it just to hear this exciting announcement. So hello everybody, Jenna Anderson, one of the co-chairs. Christy was on earlier and had to step off to parent. And we have an amazing team of people who joined a quick brainstorming call last week and are now fully committed in my book to being on the official planning team. I can see some of you going like, oh boy. But we're very excited. And so the official announcement is that we have a date, and it is April 23rd. We're very excited, and it will be a virtual event. However, given that it's that late, we are very open to ideas depending on what safety guidelines are around pickup of items, smaller gatherings, outdoor options. So if you have ideas, please start to send them now. There are no bad ideas. We're all trying to figure out how to do a community event in COVID times. So April 23rd is the date. Next week on January 28th, we'll have our official kickoff meeting where I'll send an email out tomorrow. It's open to everybody in the community. We hope a lot of people will join just to hear a little bit more about the auction, what are the goals, and would really appreciate everybody on this call starting to think about how do we make this a fun, inclusive fundraising event for our community. Send us your ideas. There will be emails in the email that goes out tomorrow. If you have an idea and you want to just send it to us, great. If you have an idea and you have some time to put into helping to realize your idea, that's even better, but just send us the ideas as well. In particular, one thing we already want to start to highlight is to the extent we can start to think through sponsorships and donations from local businesses, encouraging people, if you've had a service or a good that's helped your family, that's a local service or good that's helped during this crazy time. If you can buy and donate to the auction, that would be great. We're really starting to think through what are the things that have been helpful. How do we help the businesses in our community who've been so great at supporting us in years past? So that's my only plug for now. Email tomorrow, meeting next week, and really looking forward to this. And you know, as usual through this process, I feel like a lot of us get to start to know each other better. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. Please do reach out to me.
Thanks, Jenna. I just want to stress that we did, as Jenna mentioned, we did do our preliminary PTA board sort of huddle to plan out the best date for the auction. And we had parents from each of our 3 schools. So there is plenty of room for everyone. And we really would like to encourage some brainstorming and creative ideas as we head towards April 23rd. Okay, so we'll run through some quick campus updates. Amy Pressler, I'm not sure what else there is to say at this point about Peabody, but go for it.
Yeah, no, I to your point earlier, we've really been spending most of our time the last 90 days focused on the state of the campus and the next steps for the campus, particularly as we hopefully all get ready to get vaccinated and get back to some semblance of normal life. We've really also been focused, as Minna mentioned, on processing reimbursements for those teachers and their teaching materials as we were all getting through remote learning. And we'll continue to do that as we get ready for term 3 and some semblance of return to person as well as continued virtual. We have not yet pulled the trigger on our grants process, although that is obviously still part of our current budget. I think in light of the information that was shared tonight, we can go ahead and put our plans together to do that for term 3, unless there are further changes based on what Zurich intends to cover as part of the reimbursement and insurance coverage related to the Peabody campus. So with that, I'm going to stop. Otherwise, I think everybody's heard plenty about what's going on at Peabody. That's it on this end.
Sounds good. Thank you, Amy. We've got Pam Dickerson representing the Watkins team, Pam, Nell, and Takesha. Pam, you want to take yourself off mute and just give us a quick update about Watkins, please?
Quick updates. We, similar to Amy, will be opening the grants process hopefully mid-February. We're hoping that teachers will become acclimated in term 3 by that time, so they know what is available to them or what is needed in their classrooms and or virtually. So we will open it mid-February and close, hopefully have all applications by the first week in March. For our grants, we do have $4,000 set aside for grants for Watkins. We also have money, a lot of money, in my opinion, set aside for teacher stipends. So for those who aren't able to become a part of that process, we do have funding still available for teacher stipends. And I think that's it for now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pam. Kat Baptiste on board representing the Stewart team with Andrea, Sharon, and Kate. Kat, do you want to walk through Stewart, and please give everybody a recap on the holiday delivery as you were all dressed as elves.
Hello, everyone. So just like the other schools, we have been supporting our teachers doing this virtual learning. And for the holidays, we really want to make them feel special. Some of them receive some deliveries, some not social distancing, of course, knocking on the door and dressed in full holiday gear, ugly sweater, garland lights, little delivery elves. We really wanted them to feel comfortable and just to celebrate and show our appreciation of them and all the hard work that they're doing, especially in this time frame. So it was great fun. It was a lot of work. Shout out to Sharon and Andrea and Kate, stuffing bags and just going out there and getting it done. So That was great. We did start at the school year grants, and we just completed the fall. We've been supporting our teachers with tools to help them to facilitate the virtual learning process, to make it easier to connect with the students. And so they've been, we sent some grants out. Well, we put in the grant process. So we're entering our third grant process this upcoming February with distribution for March. That should be our final one. But I think our next step, and we'll be discussing this at our next meeting, is how we support the students that will be in-person learning at Stewart coming up soon. So that's going to be a big focus of ours as well. And we're just going to continue to keep supporting our teachers, supporting our students, supporting the Stewart Hobson community to get us through this process together. And hopefully next school year, we can all be together again. And COVID has disappeared. It's gone. That's all I have, Lona.
Thank you very much. Okay, and then we've got just a quick wrap up, including some event dates. As Principal Berkowitz noted in his Friday newsletter, the PTA will be helping to organize a kindergarten first grade mixer between our Peabody and Watkins families on Tuesday, January 27th at 8 p.m. This will be an opportunity for kindergarten parents to ask first grade teachers and families about their experiences at Watkins. Would like to encourage our Peabody families to please save that evening and join our evening mixer. We'll also be following up with traditional open houses for both Peabody and Watkins on February 16th and March 16th. Again, Principal Berkowitz noted that in his Friday newsletter, and our administration will be following up with those as the dates get closer. On Wednesday, January 28th, this just went on the calendar this morning, the Race, Class, and Equity Group will be hosting a Stewart Hobson feeder session to discuss services and experiences and ensure that they are aligned with students' values and expectations. Members of the student Hobson community will be sharing details about the rigorous academic programming at the school and enrichment activities through the students' experiences at Stewart Hobson. If you have questions about the event, please reach out to a member of the Race, Class, and Equity team. It will be through, I believe, Zoom, but that'll be posted on the listserv as well. As Mina mentioned in mid-February, we are very close to finalizing a date. Our current PTA board will be participating in an anti-bias training session with the Wells Collective. This is a follow-up to the action items from our community discussions over the summer. So we're looking forward to joining the Wells Collective for that training session, which will be about 3 hours in length one evening. As a reminder to everyone, we've got free cluster t-shirts for all cluster students. If your child needs a cluster t-shirt or has outgrown their cluster t-shirt, I am going to make an assumption that since we've got students returning to school, they're going to want to rock the red with a new shirt. So please reach out to a PTA board member. Katie will also put the email addresses in the chat, but we'd love to get everybody a red cluster t-shirt as we head into term 3. And then finally, on that note, we also have we're close to running out, but we still have a limited number of both general cluster and Stewart Hobson yard signs. Hopefully folks have seen those popping up around our community. We are selling those for $25 each with the proceeds going to the Maeve McCain Cluster Cares Fund for our families in need. So just some quick reminders. And we will go ahead, we've recorded this session tonight. Katie's taken notes on the PTA general business, and we will keep everybody informed as we build out the school improvement team for Peabody. So unless anyone has any questions, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and our next PTA meeting, our bi-monthly PTA meeting, will be in March. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.